Thank you.
Good afternoon, Aberdeen. Somebody didn't have breakfast this morning. I had a delightful bowl of Scottish porridge. Well made as usual. Type of oats that we don't seem to get down. I've said this before, haven't I? Good morning, Aberdeen.
Good morning.
Right, so you did eat this morning. This is there was our health emphasis weekend, and I had come with something to say to you, titled "The Body of Evidence." But as I flew here, I was impressed to share something else with you. Simply because of where we are. You'll understand what I mean in a moment. I'm not sure when or if I'm going to be back. It was 2 years since I was here last time. God alone knows what will happen 2 years out from now. And I think that I need to share with you what I'm going to share with you today. If I don't get to finish, that's fine. We'll see if there's any other sort of moments or spaces in the day. If not, then that's fine. But at least I need to try to share something with you that I think is right for now.
Is it?
Luke 4 tells us that Jesus just a small enough room for them to hear me. Okay, is this better? Luke 4 tells us that Jesus, unfortunately you're not going to be able to see the screen very well, it's very light in here. That Jesus went back to his home church this particular Sabbath. And it seemed to have been the praxis in his home church that visitors got an opportunity to read the scriptures. And so the minister gave Jesus the scroll. And he took the scroll and turned to Isaiah chapter 61. He took the scroll and he turned to Isaiah 61. And when he had found the place, and I'm sure we have read it many times, he looked at the congregation there in the synagogue, and the text says that he stood up to read. We're reading the story in Luke chapter 4 that Jesus has turned to Isaiah chapter 61. And he says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, Everyone who was listening to him knew right then that this was a prophecy of the Messiah. Jesus continued, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. And he has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. And he kept on reading. And the folks there knew this was a prophecy of the Messiah. And when Jesus was through, he closed the scroll and gave it back to the minister. And then he went and sat down. I can tell you Jesus didn't like drama. And he waited until he had the attention of everybody in that room. And then he said, this day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. Jesus always knew where he was in Bible prophecy. Time and time again, as we read through the Gospels, it seems as if certain things just never happened until the fullness of time had come. He always knew where he was in Bible prophecy. I want to suggest to us this morning that the reason that we do what we do is because some of us haven't got a clue where we are. If only we better understood where we were in this earth's history, many of those important things that we fall over to get accomplished would give place to only those things that were essential. We are living, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, through the very time that we had looked forward to just a few years ago. We would sit and we would do the Bible studies and we would read the spirit of prophecy. And we would understand that there was coming a time when the final crisis would begin. And God's people would have to stand up and be counted. We are living in those very moments. And the problem that most of us have is that it's easy to look back at history. Oh, this happened 100 years ago, 500 years ago. Oh, back in the time of Christ, look how the prophecies were fulfilled. And it's easier to also look into the future. Oh, this is going to be happening at the end of time. But the problem is, when you're living through what we are living through, when history has caught up with prophecy, as it has done in our time, you have to step back and you have to taste what is happening, because sometimes you need to, is this real? Is this real? Is this really happening? Are these the times that have been prophesied about? That is the difficulty and that is the challenge that we have. But make no mistake, we are living right at the hinge of when the final crisis will break and come as an overwhelming surprise to those to whom it should never be a surprise. We know how the story goes. We've read the book. We've read the last chapter. We know how things are going to pan out, and yet there will be many of us who are found wanting. To whom much is given, much is required. Early writings. Satan is pressing in on every side. I don't know whether you can adjust the contrast a little to give us a bit more clarity. He's pressing on every side. And unless we watch for him and have our eyes open to his devices and snares, and have on the whole armour of God, the fiery darts of the wicked will hit us. There are many precious truths contained in the Word of God, but it is what kind of truth? It is present truth. Present truth that the flock needs now. Present truth. Again and again, she says, Testimonies Volume 6, I have been instructed that the medical missionary work is to bear the same relation to the work of the third angel's message that the arm and hand bear to the body. Under the direction of the divine head, they, medical missionary work and the third angel's message, under the direction of the divine head, they are to work together, unitedly, in preparing the way for the coming of Christ. Present truth is what we need. Health reform, medical missionary work, the health stuff that we do, is supposed to be the right arm of everything that we do. That, linked with the gospel, the prophecy, the doctrine that we teach, are together to prepare the way for the coming of Christ. When we do the medical missionary stuff, the health expos, when we share information on health with others, it is not an end in itself. Remember where we're living. Remember the times. Remember that Jesus didn't do anything without understanding where he was in Bible prophecy. Those two things are to work together. And so everything we do, we are not about making healthy sinners for God. That's not why we do health expos. That is not why we share. It is the right arm of the truth that God has delivered to this church to deliver to the world. And we have to faithfully deliver that which God has delivered to us. Jude 3 says, Beloved, contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. And that is not an end in itself. It's so that we can deliver it faithfully to others. The right arm of the body of truth is to constantly be active, constantly at work, and God will strengthen it. The medical missionary work is as the right arm of the third angel's message, which must be proclaimed to a fallen world. The body is not to say to the arm, I have no need of you. The body has need of the arm in order to do active, aggressive work. Both the message and the health, both have their appointed work, and each will suffer great loss if worked independently of the other. The medical missionary work is to be the work of the church as the right arm to the body. The third angel goes forth proclaiming the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. The medical missionary work is the gospel in practice. As the right arm is connected to the body, so the health reform and the medical missionary work is connected with the third angel's message, and is the work efficiently as the right arm, to work efficiently as the right arm for the defense to the body of truth. There is to be no division between the medical missionary work and the gospel ministry. I'm not sure whether you get the message. Medical missionary work is to be the third angel's message as the right arm to the body. Both are to work in harmony. Then, when they are working together. We are not a one-sided people. There are those who only want to do the health message and say, well, you know, people will understand and by our characters and the way we are with them, they will know that we're of Christ. Inspiration says, no! The two work together, hand in hand. You don't separate them. Those two things will work together and help to prepare the way for the coming of Christ. This is present truth. This is end time stuff. This is the stuff that prepares the way to the coming of Christ. Both are to work in harmony. Then the salvation of the Lord will be revealed. I'm going to pass on with this because I haven't got time to go through it. But any time you look at any mnemonic, when it comes to health, there is always a component, whether you're looking at New Start, where you have a T that says trust in God, or you're looking at the laws of health, where the final H is about holiness. There is always a component there that binds the whole health issue with also an understanding of who we are and where we are in Bible prophecy. Professor Fernando Canali, now retired, used to train our ministers there in Andrews University, wrote an article, and I advise everyone to get hold of this article. You can go onto the General Conference website, and if you look on I know they're always changing and updating websites, so this might not still be so, but if you look on the left-hand side, as you're looking at the screen, you'll see a link there to the Biblical Research Institute. If you go on to our Biblical Research Institute, where they discuss doctrines and issues and answer hard questions, you go onto that website and you type in either Fernando Canali or the title of this paper, Thinking Biblically in the Pastoral Ministry, then you'll get this paper. It's a paper that was written for our leaders, for pastors, elders. But every church member should get this because it's making the point that I was trying to make this morning. And the point is this. He pulls out two statements that were made by General Conference presidents in the past. One was Neil Wilson, who is the current president, Ted Wilson's father, and one was the president who Ted Wilson replaced in 2010, who was Jan Paulson. These General Conference presidents looked at the church, Seventh-day Adventist Church, their members, and made two startling observations. I hope you're holding on to your seats. The startling observations were these. The church is biblically illiterate. What does that mean in today's money? We have church members now filling our pews who don't know what the Bible says. How is that possible? We were called the people of the book. No, that's your grandmother and grandfather. Hello, somebody. We are now the people of EastEnders. Hello. Emmerdale. Trying to think of another channel. What's on channel 4? Don't say it. Don't know what's in the Bible. Biblically illiterate. Remember who is saying this. And Fernando Canali, this professor, took these two things, wrote this article, fleshed out what they were saying, and sent it to all of the ministers, saying, look, this needs to be addressed. So the first thing was they're biblically illiterate. These presidents are looking at me and you in the pews and they're saying, not only are we biblically illiterate, they are doctrinally illiterate too. What does that mean in today's money? It means that they don't even know what we believe. And that's why you can get folk, for example, fighting over whether or not we should include the third angel's message in a pack that you give to somebody about blood pressure. Because they don't understand that the two things, for example, the medical missionary health reform work and the health reform, and the third angel's message work together. They're a package. You can't separate them. Doctrinally illiterate, biblically illiterate. And the reason that he goes on to give, I don't even know what I put up there, the reason he goes on to give is that the reason, now he comes to a conclusion here, but I think it's broader than that. It's not about just pastors who don't feed the sheep, it's about sheep who don't feed sheep. It's about elders that don't feed sheep. But I'm more concerned that we don't feed ourselves. Half the time it's not the pastor or the elders, they bring the grapes, but some of us want them to even move our jaws up and down to chew. That's why I began by saying, that we need to understand where we are in prophecy. We need to understand, because some of the nonsense that we do, the crowd are weak, has to go. If we are serious about who we are supposed to be and what God has called us in this faith for, something has got to change. It cannot remain the same. Anytime I think of it, I remember this story back in Isaiah, where Hezekiah sends Eliakim, Shebna the scribe, and they send him to Isaiah, and he said, that they get to Isaiah and they say, this is a day of trouble and of rebuke. Why? What's going on? What is going on? Turn to Isaiah wearing sackcloth. The people have come to the birth, they tell Isaiah, but there is no strength to bring forth. Break it down. All those years we have studied Sabbath school lessons, Revelation seminars, read the Bible from cover to cover, dipped in and out of the spirit of prophecy, talking about the times that are just ahead for the church, when the Sunday law comes, brethren. And I'm going to stand for the truth though the heavens fall, brethren. And then we get there. It's like a woman who has conceived, and she's eating all of the right things, and the blood pressure is where it needs to be, and the nutrition is going on, and she's taking a folic acid supplements, and you know the husband is rubbing the bump at the appropriate times and talking to the baby as he's developing and making sure that she's not stressed, and then she comes to the point of having to give birth, and there's just no energy left. She just can't do it. She can't do it. She can't do it. What would happen if there was no such thing as a cesarean section? And she can't push. Push, Fred, push. And the husband's there saying, come on. You know, Pat, you know how we practice? Every practice was good. Every practice was good. And he's there helping, he's helping. You know, he's taking the air and the gas in there. Forgetting it to give it to her, but he's taking it. Push! What would happen? In fact, what does happen in those parts of the world where they can't get access to that sort of tertiary medical care? What happens? What happens to the baby? What happens to the lady? The mother? Hezekiah was using that analogy. We can take that analogy for God's church. They've come to the birth. We've done everything right, or so we seemed. And now when we are supposed to be here to deliver to the world that which we have prepared for and studied for and worked for, could it be that we do not have the strength to push? No strength to bring forth. We need to understand where we are in Earth's history. Though no man knows the day or the hour, Great Controversy, page 370, we are instructed and required to know when it is near. We are further taught, listen to this, to disregard his warning and to refuse or to neglect to know when his advent is near will be as fatal for us as it was for those who lived in the days of Noah. Not to know when that coming is near. Scripture gives no warrant, she goes on, for men to remain in ignorance concerning the nearness of Christ's coming. But here's the thing. As the storm approaches, this is page 608, a large class who have professed faith, I believe. See, no strength to bring forth now. I believe. Why? Because everything's in the future. Everything is 20 years away, 30 years away, 50 years away. But then it arrives. A large class who have professed faith. Now, here's the thing about this. As the storm approaches, what does that tell you? It's not even here yet. All you're getting is a little breeze that's blowing the wind. You know there's a storm coming because you can feel a little bit of breeze that's going. This storm's not here yet. The storm isn't here yet, and yet a large class who have professed faith, claim to believe, come every Sabbath, heard the same sermon, sang the same hymns, but have not been sanctified through obedience to truth. Hello? The highest service we can give to God is the service of obedience. Amen. But we come along and we don't want to be obedient. We just want to be content. And we want to feel good. That's why Paul says, instant in season and out of season. When you feel like it and when you don't. When it feels good and when it doesn't. When it's easy, but more often when it's hard. In season and out of season. Have not been sanctified through obedience to the truth, abandon their position and join the ranks of the opposition. Oh, isn't that interesting? Storm's not even here yet, and that's what they're doing. Came across a website called The Journey Home. The Journey Home. And home is the Roman Catholic Church. And on this site, it was put together by this brother who was a former Presbyterian minister, ordained Presbyterian minister. In 1992, he was converted to the Roman Catholic faith. And he feels that it was his mission now to witness to other ministers of any denomination to bring them on their journey home. To date, over 2,000 ministers. I won't even go into the numbers for just regular church members, but over 2,000 ministers in the United States of America, he has brought back home. And I was watching these videos, and there were Methodist ministers journeying home. Hallelujah. And there were Presbyterian ministers, some of his former colleagues. And there were Jehovah's Witnesses journeying home. And there were Mormons journeying home. There were atheists. Priests who were atheists journeying home. He was beside himself. But I kept on watching. And my heart missed the beat. I nearly fell off my chair as I saw the procession from the Seventh-day Adventist Church journeying home. Lord have mercy. as the storm approaches. It's not even here yet. We've got to understand where we are in Earth's history and what is taking place before our eyes. And when you look at these people, these are all Seventh Adventists who have journeyed home. You have these two here. The only reason I'm mentioning them, I single them out for mention, is because they're prolific writers. And they've written stuff on the internet, they've written books. They're the beams. Sister Beam here was brought up in a Seventh Adventist church. She has never attended a secular institution. From kindergarten right the way through to university, she just attended Seventh-day Adventist places. Her uncles, she's got brothers who are ministers in the Seventh Adventist church. But she journeyed home. She met her husband at university, and the two of them journeyed home together. They wrote 24 reasons why I left the Seventh Adventist church. And I thought, I've got to get this. 24 reasons, wow. Have I missed something? Should there be something that my family need to know? 24 reasons. That's a lot of reasons. I wish I didn't waste my time. The very first reason, top of the list, that was cited in this 24 reasons, are the fact that you have Seventh-day Adventist physicians in Seventh-day Adventist hospitals. We're talking about medical missionary work. Look how the enemy works. And by the way, a text that I would normally have started with, this sort of presentation, is looking at 2 Corinthians, mark it down, chapter 2 and verse 11. Paul is telling us there, the only way the devil will get an advantage over us is if we don't understand how he works, if we are ignorant of his devices. Some of us don't want to understand or see how he works, but we've got to know where his footprints have been. We've got to be able to recognize his fingerprints and stuff. And so at the top of their list, it was Seventh Adventist physicians who in Seventh Adventist hospitals carry out non-medical abortions. And she felt, I think the statement was there something like, Seventh Adventists seem more concerned about what people put on their plates rather than whether or not a baby survives in the womb. Now, how shocking is that? And I say, yes, sister. Yes. Get your plaque, write your protest on the plaque, and go and picket the hospital. Go and picket the clinic. We have uncircumcised, unconverted Adventist doctors who do stuff. By the way, we've got a few of those as members as well. Hello, somebody. But how are you going to prevent some uncircumcised, some unconverted, some physician that doesn't know what he's doing, and if he does, then he should know better, stop them from preventing you from holding on to the truth? Top reason. Don't let anybody stand. See, someone once said, if someone is standing between you and Christ, they are in fact closer to Christ than you are. Oh, it's because of what he did. Oh, it's because of what she did. Oh, really? Every one of these individuals now attends church, reverencing Sunday. The Beams now adore the Virgin Mary. They attend Mass Saturday afternoons, Sunday mornings. They're praying now, Lord, when I die, may I enter. So when you die now, you go straight to heaven. I thought to myself, wait a minute, slow down. Your top reason for not wanting to be a member of the Seventh Adventist Church and your reason for journeying to Rome has been that you've got doctors carrying out abortions. Right. Make a noise about that. I will be the first one behind you to support you, dear sister. How does that doctor doing what he's doing in his ungodly practice in that clinic, how does that suddenly change the fact that God said, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy? How does that change? How does it change what the wise men said? The dead know not anything.
David says when they die, in that very day, their thoughts perish. All of a sudden now, when you die, you go into glory. How does what that physician is doing in his clinic suddenly change my understanding of Bible truth? How does it change? The truth doesn't change. We are the ones who change. And we are the ones who will allow others to change that. That's why Paul says what? He says, prove all things, and then what do? Someone knows the text. Prove all things, what comes next?
Take that
Holding on.
Hold what?
which is good.
You're not just holding on, what are you holding? What are you doing?
Truth.
Holding fast! In other words, don't let go. Hold fast to that which is good. Hold fast to that which is good. And men are closing their eyes to the real character of Rome and the dangers to be apprehended from her supremacy. There's some very strange things that have been happening. You will know when in 2013 you had the resignation of Benedict the 16th. That strange thing happened, caught on camera across the world. The strangest thing, the lightning that hit the basilica. And folks started to say, oh, Luke, remember Luke? Jesus said, I saw lightning fall from heaven. You know, I saw Satan as lightning. Everyone thought, don't be silly, people say, Satan fall. It's a picture. It's coincidence the lightning hit the building. In 1990, Malachi Martin, don't know whether you remember him, he wrote this book, The Keys of This Blood. Malachi Martin was, because he died, I think it's 2003. He was the professor of the Vatican Pontifical Biblical Institute. He's a Jesuit priest, just like the current Pope. He was a Vatican insider. He was, in fact, a spokesman for John Paul II. He wrote this book, The Keys of This Blood. Can't get the book now. In fact, if you try to get one off of eBay, they want silly money for it. Got mine on my shelf since that time, not lending it to anybody. You want to read it? Come and read it in my study. But in that book, you know, in fact, the reason I don't want to talk about that book, I haven't got time. But he wrote this book, and it's interesting because if you go to the index of the book and you look up, what would you look for? What's the first thing you look for in the index of a book like this? He's looking at the struggle between East and West to establish and lead the world's superpower. He's looking at the struggle between, he says, it was the West, it was Russia, and it was the Vatican. We know what happened when Ronald Reagan got with Gorbachev. The Soviet Union the East no longer featured. So anyway, so look at this book, right? Massive thick book. What do you look for in indices, very quickly? What do you look for? Well, not what I look for. I want to see, does he mention Seventh-day Adventists? Well, of course, there we are. So you turn to the page. What do you say about Seventh-day Adventists? Seventh-day Adventists at the time, what were we? 11 million people, 12 million people, not even a pinprick on the back of an elephant. But he wrote about us in this particular context. Seventh-day Adventists will be a major opponent in the push of the papacy to establish and lead the world's first superpower, one world government. And you read that in 1990 and you thought, why Seventh-day Adventists? You call it the Seventh-day Adventists, look over here, not even very good. Why? Because they go through our books. They read what we don't read. You know, I can say this because I'm never going to be in a position for it to operate, for it to happen. But I say it. I say it everywhere that I preach. I'll be surprised if I haven't said it here already. And it's really important. It's as good for members as everybody else. But I will not ordain a Seventh-day Adventist pastor that hadn't read those 5 books, the Conference of Ages series. Patriarchs and Prophets, Prophets and Kings, Desire of Ages, Acts of the Apostles, Great Controversy. Would never ordain a Seventh-day minister. In those 5 books, what you have in capsular form are the fundamental truths that are revealed in the scriptures and what God has revealed for us to teach. Easiest way to get the knowledge is to read those books. And by the way, you can read those 5 volumes in a year and still have more year left at the end of the year by the time you finish the book. Somebody say amen. All you're going to do is read 1 chapter a day. 1 chapter a day. We've got a WhatsApp forum. We started reading, taking those who have never read it before. And sometimes when you've done something so often, you have to do it with folks who haven't done it before. That's the selfless way to encourage people. And we took them through the Great Controversy. We just finished it last week. Took everybody through. Individuals who said, I've started it, but I've stopped. I've started, but they didn't understand what they were reading and why they were reading what they were reading. And when folk get a glimpse of the power that's within that book, you will see how quickly it was read. So we finished last week. Those who are thinking, 42 chapters. We've done it. It's gone. Chapter a day. Went like wildfire, very quickly. Wouldn't ordain a single elder that hadn't read those 5 books. What is it about those books? Patriarchs and Prophets takes us from prehistory. Stuff going on in heaven when Satan was messing around, even before creation. Takes you through right to the first kings of Israel, David, Solomon. Saul, David. Then you get the second book, Prophets and Kings. That takes you from David and Solomon and takes you right to the intertestamental period. Desire of Ages takes you through the life of Christ. Acts of the Apostles, which really should be called the Acts of the Holy Spirit, tells you about how the Christian church was established and how the Holy Spirit did great things. And by the way, when you read that book, you get a better picture of how the Holy Spirit can operate at the end of time. Because the Spirit of Prophecy says the power that accompanied the church in its founding will be superseded by the power of the Holy Spirit at the end of time. You think that baptizing 5,000 people in a day is anything? We haven't seen anything yet. And then you get the final book, the Great Controversy. Great Controversy takes us from the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 right to beyond the millennium in the earth made new. Prehistory to the earth made new. The very first book, Patriarchs and Prophets, starts with 3 words. Anybody know what those 3 words are? The same 3 words are what the very last book, the Great Controversy, ends in. What are those 3 words? God is love. It begins with God is love. It ends with God is love. And then you see the outworking of God's love in human history all through the middle. Every one of us should read those books because we will then have a grasp of what the truth is. And so this Malachi Martin character, he wrote this, there's a lot in there that I just haven't got time to go through. But he wrote another book in 1998 that most of us missed. In 1998 he wrote it, and it was described to be a fiction, or a faction. And what it was, is that in this book, published in 1998, he called it a Vatican novel. Say with me. It charts the turmoil within the Catholic faith and within Vatican City, okay? He describes, remember who he is? He's a Jesuit priest. He's a priest, he's an ordained priest. He's a professor at the uppermost Vatican Catholic University. He describes a satanic ritual, the enthronement of Lucifer, taking place inside the Vatican. That would be like a Seventh-day Adventist pastor writing a story, a novel about how Satan was enthroned in the General Conference building. It wouldn't happen, would it? What a strange thing to write about. Stay with me, look at this. It gives the picture of high-ranking churchmen, cardinals, archbishops, prelates, who are ambassadors that are sent from Rome, taking oaths signed in their own blood. Really? It tells the story of an international organised attempt by these Vatican insiders, secular internationalists, the Bilderberg Group, Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Club of Rome, Royal Institute of International Affairs, those are the parody groups, that to force a pope of the Catholic Church to abdicate. He's writing this in what year? 1998. Abdicate? What fiction? No pope has abdicated from the Roman Catholic Church in over 1,000 years. So it must be a work of fiction. So that a successor may be chosen that will fundamentally change the Orthodox faith. The author describes the book as containing real events and real people masked in a form of a novel. When the book was published, he was then able to do a tour of the TV studios. And he said, look, the reason I wrote this thing in the form of a novel, had I written it as a historical book, they would have tied me up for decades with legal business in the court. And I would have never been able to publish what I published. And so, here are the figures. Martin says, 95% of events in the book are real, and 85% of the characters are real people. Those are the upper border of limit. That means that he has to say that that this could be a work of fiction. All right. You know, I'd be surprised if you get those figures even in works of history, because history, as you know, is his story. You know, it's always told by a particular perspective, from a particular perspective. But that's what he says. Look, yeah, these people are working together to get a pope to abdicate, all right, to give up being pope. That will never happen. Oh, really? Then we get to 2013, and what happens? The same thing that they said wouldn't have happened and never has happened for over 1,000 years. Something was afoot. Prior to him becoming ordained or becoming pope, he went to this is George Bergoglio as cardinal. He went to a Pentecostal gathering of evangelicals and Catholics in Buenos Aires. Over 3,000 people there. And you know what happened? He fell to his knees and asked the pastors of those Pentecostal evangelical churches to pray for him. And so they approached him, they laid hands on him and they prayed. What's it called when you lay hands on somebody and pray? Oh. So here we have the first pope in history ordained by Protestants. They didn't know he was going to become pope, by the way. When he did become pope, I hope you not followed the media on this, when he did become pope, he was hailed as being sent by God by the very same evangelicals and Protestants. You've read this story. You know what happens right at the very end. He's written a book called On Heaven and Earth. And in that book, have I said it before somewhere? Very quickly. In the book, he says, I was responsible. Let me see if I got it somewhere else. Yeah. I was responsible, he says, for charismatic renewal in Argentina. This is the same meeting. And that's why I love them very much. So he's claiming responsibility for what happens there. We know what Ellen White has to say about stretching hands across the gulf in terms of spiritualism and in terms of the papacy. Two more points and I'm going to finish because I can see the time. It says here, when he went in 2014, again, unprecedented, he stood before the European Parliament. Pope's never done this before, and was addressing the legislators of the European Parliament, responsible for 500 million citizens in Europe. And what did he say to them? He said, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. I missed the word out. Through you! He could look straight through the camera and say, I am now addressing the citizens of Europe. But those of us that have read the last page of the story know that there's got to come a few laws before then. A particular law. And he says, thank you for giving me the opportunity of speaking through you. Through the legislators. Oh, you say, he probably misspoke. He didn't know what he was saying. Oh, then last year, that was 2014, last year he turns up at the joint session of the House of Congress. And he makes a speech. Oh, what does he say? Let's see whether he misspoke again. Today, he says, we can Google the speech and read it word for word. Today, he says, I would like not only to address you, that's the legislators, joint House of Congress, that's the legislative body, they make the laws for the United States, but what? Through you! I'm telling you, we are living in those times that were predicted. Through you, the legislators. Why? Because he knows something. There's been some agreement. Europe, America. Through you as legislators, I'm going to speak to your people. I said I was going to end with this. Let me end on this. Give you the choreography. When you get a new president of the United States of America, president-elect, happened to Bill Clinton, happened to Obama, it's no doubt will happen to either Hillary Clinton or, what's the other fellow's name? One that's masquerading. Alright, I shouldn't say that. Because it could be very likely to become president. He's got all the credentials, hasn't he? So you've got Hillary Clinton, either one of them, this could happen to. President-elect. So you're not president yet, but you've been voted. The vote is over. What happens then? They arrive and land at Andrews Air Force Base. What is hangared at Andrews Air Force Base? Anybody? Air Force One, that's where the president's jet is hanging. Yeah? So I'm giving you the choreography of what happens to a president-elect. This is what happened when the last president, Obama, this is what Obama did when he came in 2008. They land at Andrews Air Force Base. They go from Andrews Air Force Base to the White House. They have a session with the sitting president. Yeah? They leave from the White House. They go to Congress. They address Congress. They then leave Congress. They go and get their oath of office, and then they address all the people that are gathered. This is the west front of the Capitol building. They're facing the Washington Memorial. What is the Washington Memorial? What is it? It's the obelisk. Yeah? That's what they're facing. Yeah? So, choreography. Andrews Air Force Base. White House. What's next? Congress. They address Congress. They then go, they have their oath of office, and straight after that, they go to the lower balcony at the west front of the Capitol building, facing the Washington Memorial, and they address all of the crowds that are packed in there. You got that? Right. 24th of September, Francis arrives in the United States. He lands at Andrews Air Force Base. He goes from Andrews Air Force Base to the White House. I've got pictures. I'm just trying to expedite that. He goes from the White House to Congress and addresses Congress. He then goes from addressing Congress to the western front of the Capitol building. There is no oath of office. But he doesn't go to the lower balcony. He goes, there's only 2 floors. He goes to the upper balcony, looking down on where the presidents normally address the people when they're sworn into office. And he addresses the people facing the Washington Memorial. Unprecedented. But something is going on. If I had time this morning, I will take you through the fact, I'm sure you already know about this, when we were speaking in the car coming down yesterday with Elder Searchwell. Something happened on the 8th of December last year. It was the 50th anniversary of Vatican II. We have to understand what Vatican II means in terms of end-time events. It was also a celebration that day, memorial, of the Immaculate Conception, the Virgin Mary. 8th of December, the door of mercy was opened. The door of mercy was opened. It's going to be closed on the 20th of November this year. We're living through it now. Doors are opening up all around the world. They're opening up in prisons. They're opening up in the refugee camps in Syria. They're opening in not only Catholic churches, but also non-Catholic churches who are also part of this process. And then he says, he wrote this it all was there written in April 2015. Francis wrote a document called Misericordiae Vultus. It's supposed to be the best papal bull, because these documents are called papal bulls, ever written. In it, he's announcing this historic event of the Year of Mercy, the Jubilee Year of Mercy. Then it says right at the end, when the door, it says everyone should seek this and make pilgrimage, because on the 20th of November the door will be sealed. And then we're going to thank God for his extraordinary period of grace. Now you tell me something. When grace ends, what closes? Probation. What probation is closing on the 20th of this year? 20th of November this year. What probation? When probation closes, we know just preceding that, we have, in Gregory Jossi tells us, that in the last act, crowning act in the great drama of deception, is when Satan personates the second coming of Christ. What are we going to see? Is it going to be something that we witness, or is it going to be something that is undercover? My point is that these are things that are taking place. I'm so sorry that I've gone over time, but these are things that are taking place. And the work that we have to do, you know, this is not just another health expo. This is another medical missionary effort that is going to be hand in hand with the third angel's message as we reach out to a dying world. People need to know what we know. We've got to stop treating this church like it's a club. We come here to make us feel good. No. The church is not a refrigerator to preserve the saints. It is a generator to warm us up so that we can become ever more active. We need to stand up and be counted. God expects every one of us to fulfill the reason that He placed us here. It's my determination to allow God to use me, every fibre of my being, not to hide or to close off any corner of my mind, so that His Spirit could work through me easily and freely. It is my prayer for you too. God bless you.